Good evening and welcome to Scotland at 7. And joining me this evening, I have the fabulous and wonderful Julie Coombe. Hi Julie, how are you doing?
I'm good. I will try my best to be fabulous and wonderful. Can't guarantee it, but I will do my
You
best.
are always fabulous and wonderful, and we're going to have a great show tonight, having a right good natter. But
Good.
first of all, we're going to carry on with the coronavirus update. As of 2 p.m. today, a total of 1,929,575 people in Scotland have been tested through NHS Scotland labs and UK Government regional testing centres since the start of the pandemic. Of these, 1,702,846 have been confirmed negative. 226,729 have tested positive. There have been 85 new cases of COVID-19 confirmed by a test, although not everyone with the virus will display symptoms and not all those with symptoms will be tested. There are issues affecting data from the UK testing sites currently being investigated, which might be contributing to today's lower number of cases. However, this is not yet certain. There are no reported deaths of people who have been tested positive. The number of patients in Scotland who have died from complications caused by the coronavirus infection now stands at 7,660. This number only includes those who have died having received a positive test for the virus in the previous 28 days. Of the people who have tested positive, 69 were in hospital last night, 13 of whom were in intensive care. As of 8 a.m. this morning, 2,846,834 people had received their first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 1,373,882 have received their second dose. The latest UK daily figures show 127,570 patients who tested positive for COVID-19 have sadly died from their illness, an increase of 27 since yesterday. This number refers to the deaths in all settings and not just hospitals. And once again, we send our condolences to all the families and friends of those who have lost a loved one. And also best wishes to everyone in intensive care and wish you a speedy recovery. Now for the next update, the NRS update. As of the 2nd of May, 10,097 deaths have been registered in Scotland, where the coronavirus was mentioned on the death certificate. According to the statistics published by the National Records of Scotland today, in the week the 26th of April to the 2nd of May, 19 deaths were registered that mentioned COVID-19 on the death certificate, a decrease of 4 deaths from the previous week. At council level, the largest number of deaths were in Glasgow City and North Lanarkshire, which both recorded 3 deaths, with 2 of each in Renfrewshire, South Ayrshire and West Dunbartonshire. Of 32 council areas in Scotland, 20 recorded no deaths involving COVID-19. 79% of deaths were people aged 75 and over, representing 15 deaths and 2 deaths of people under 65. Now, moving on to today's news, and we're moving on to the current and up-to-date election news. The latest poll shows SNP majority government most popular for Scotland. Polling by opinion for Sky News shows that the only popular outcome for the 2021 election is an SNP majority government, with all other options seen negatively. Deputy First Minister John Swinney and said this underlined the importance of everyone who wanted to see an SNP majority government turning out tomorrow to ensure Nicola Sturgeon is re-elected as First Minister, backed by a strong SNP government that can kickstart economic recovery remobilise our NHS and get the country through the COVID crisis. John Swinney said that this poll confirms that the people of Scotland have faith and confidence in the SNP government, and that the only way to ensure that the outcome is to use both votes for the SNP, but he added that the result of every Scottish Parliament election is on a knife edge and cannot be taken for granted. Now, Julie, we just had a wee quick blather about this before we came on air. This seems to be the most nerve-wracking election I have ever faced in terms of a voter. How are you feeling about this?
I share your sort of nervousness, actually, Sam. I mean, I've been out sort of doing a wee bit of canvassing and dropping leaflets through the doors and all that, but I don't know. I think I felt a wee bit kind of confused with the both votes thing because I've been hearing so many contrary opinions.
Yeah.
Do you know, because I just thought it was so straightforward. If you are an SNP supporter and a pro-indie person like myself, that it was 2 votes SNP. But then I heard people that friends that I really respect, other people I've seen opinions from on TV, read in the newspaper. Oh, no, you don't want to do that. And I think it has been quite confusing. And I think the cynic in me thinks it's been deliberately confusing because I'm always looking for a Westminster conspiracy, to try and derail.
I think we all do, don't we? We've got so used to them.
Yeah, but I do think it's right not to be complacent. And I think that, I think the SNP, I think especially Nicola Sturgeon has, led us through this pandemic in an exemplary way. But I think it's right not to be complacent. And there's just, you feel a wee bit bombarded with the anti-indie referendum parties, just constantly, any non-SNP leaflets we get through the door, it's just stop indie now. So I think it's right not to be complacent, but I'm hoping that they return a majority. Really am.
Yeah, it is getting quite scary. I agree. It's been quite confusing. Yeah, there's been quite a lot of misinformation going about out there regarding the voting system, and it is very confusing. If people don't quite understand how our voting system works, it's not necessarily first past the post, then it is. Well, it is quite confusing in how it works.
Yeah, and if this is the first time that I have voted postal vote, and we all decided to do it because the youngest son is in Newcastle because he's in his final year at uni, and we thought, right, we'll all get postal votes because you don't know what's going to happen, and then that means that Leo down in Newcastle, he's got his postal vote. So we opened them up, and we think of ourselves as fairly smart in this house, but we all opened them up and we're like that. Oh, we've got to think about this. We've got to think about what we do, and we were all like, there's 2 envelopes. Do we put? And actually, it took a wee bit of figuring out of the form. I'd like to say it was so simple and straightforward. And now that we've done it, we think it was simple and straightforward. But I can understand why people would open that up and go, what on earth do I do with this? What way up is it? So I hope that the postal vote's gone smoothly. I hear that the count is already underway. It's been underway for a few days, but interesting. It's going to be so interesting this weekend.
It is. Are you going to the count at all?
No, I didn't. I went to the count. I went to the count in general election 2019, and I have to say, Sam, I don't think I've been the same since. I don't know whether it was bad for me. Staying up all night and being so tense. Both my husband and I went, and we were just like, that kind of knocked us for 6. So I'm not going to the count, but I'm going to go and help out any way I can at one of our local hubs tomorrow.
Yeah, I remember doing the coming on Broadcasting Scotland during the general election, and I got home at 5 a.m. and I was absolutely done in. But watching the votes coming in was, yeah, it was nerve-wracking. But on Saturday, I'm going along to one of the counts, so it's going to be interesting to see. I don't, no doubt my nerves will be shot. Definitely shot. So we'll need to keep in touch, Julie, to see how we're coping over the weekend. See if we're surviving, our stress levels are surviving. Right, now to move on to our next story. Staying with the election, and the Scottish Greens make a final pitch for votes. The Scottish Greens co-leader Patrick Harvie and Lorna Slater today underlined the stakes at this election as they make the final pitch for votes. The Scottish Greens say they have conducted a positive campaign for a green recovery from the pandemic and urgent action on the climate emergency. Patrick Harvie said that the stakes are high at this election. He said that the Scottish Greens have shown their campaign and that green voters make a real difference to the last 5 years and can have a huge impact in the next 5 years as Scotland faces up to the bold decisions needed to tackle the climate emergency. Mr Harvie said, "We have a positive vision for Scotland. This is the time to take matters into our own hands, to build a Scotland that can lead Europe in tackling the climate emergency. But there is no time to lose. That's why the time to vote Green is now. It's time to vote like our future depends on it." Co-leader Lorna Slater said that if this election, our future is at stake, and only the Scottish Greens have produced detailed plans to invest in a new deal for renewable energy and a new deal for workers and a new deal for nature. Now, Julie, obviously the Greens have been a vital part in Holyrood, as along with the SNP, pushing through the climate changes and due to the climate emergency. How do you think the Greens are going to do tomorrow? Do you think they're going to have a strong election vote, or do you think they might be a wee bit weaker this time round?
I was thinking about this actually. A friend of mine is the press officer for the Greens, and so I'm very aware of all the stuff that comes out. And obviously, I know Patrick because he's very keen on the arts actually.
Yes,
but I do think I have a wee feeling that they're going to do quite well. I think a lot of younger people are becoming so much more aware of the emergency of climate, of where we are with climate change. And if there are any deniers out there, they just had to be out in the weather that I was out in today, when it was hailstones, sun, almost snow, rain, wind. I felt like I was in that Flash Gordon film, when they get hot hail. It's either climate change or attack from a different planet. But I think I'm kind of hoping that the Greens will have quite a strong election. And I'm excited for the 16-year-olds that get to vote for the first time. And I think they'll go predominantly for Greens and SNP. That is my hope.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of the younger generation, because I've been out campaigning as well, and when you're speaking to a lot of the younger ones, it's SNP and the Greens that they will be. They seem to be more leaning towards, which is really good. And they are much more aware of the climate crisis. They tend to not deny it the way the older generation does, but I'm not saying, because I know a lot of older generation who are very clued up in climate change. And it is exciting to see the youngsters voting for the first time. It is so great. And the weather was horrendous. I was in the middle of doing a Reiki session when it suddenly started thundering today. Yeah, that was interesting. The poor client wondered what was happening.
But you'd conjured up some force of nature.
Yeah, she did ask that. She did ask if I had conjured up the gods or something, I've never had that experience before, but it was different. Now, to move on, before I start going on about mad, crazy things. Now to stick with the script and move on to the next story. Pro-union supporters spend big on anti-SNP advertising. In the past week, pro-union groups which support keeping Scotland in the UK have been spending large sums of money on anti-SNP and anti-Scottish independence advertising. An organisation called Scotland Matters, which was co-founded by the BBC's favourite bacteriologist Hugh Pennington, has registered with the Electoral Commission so it can plough as much as £75,000 into advertising promoting anti-SNP tactical voting. Oh, too much money to spend, I can think. Other advertising on Facebook promoted the Vote Union tactical voting tool, and Brian Monteith's Think Scotland, a blog, also spent heavily on promoting Vote Union's guide. A group called Young Unionists, which does not clearly indication of who's in control, has also been placing similar online advertising. Pro-union election campaigns in Scotland have previously been funded by so-called dark money, funnelled into Scotland via Northern Ireland. Now, Julie, as I said, there's obviously the money to waste when there's lots of people out there living in poverty, but but the thing is, I know I have seen these posts. I've now started to report them as spam or fake news because they are absolutely horrendous. Have you seen any of them or experienced any of them yet on social media?
You know, I when I knew that we were going to be covering this, I was looking up some stuff, and I haven't, and I don't know whether it's that I live in this lovely little bubble, although I was getting invitations to join the Scottish Conservatives for a long time, and I thought, have they even met me?
Lucky you!
I know, personal invitations. And I just thought, what, I wonder what I've been typing into Facebook that's made them do that, and I thought maybe it's because I'd been working on a lot of equity things and I had been typing in union, and that's how the algorithms had worked. But I actually thought when we were covering this that it was maybe these massive billboards, the sort of screens that I had seen, because we went for a visit to Longnidrey Bents last week. We went down to the beach. Beautiful, and coming back and we saw these big screens, and it was very much the kind of thing that you're talking about. It was garish and it was in your face, and I hope that these play into the SNP's hands, if you know what I mean, because I hope it's a small minority. I think it shows how scared and how paranoid they are if they want to throw that amount of money. Like you say, when people are in poverty and going to food banks and everything, I think it's shameful that you should spend that much money denying, the settled will of the Scottish people. But I haven't seen any on Facebook, so obviously I'm not typing in the right thing. Or I am typing in the right thing.
You're typing. No, it's like every second or third post I've been getting a sponsored post, and it's from one of the unionist groups. And the only groups I'm part of are holistic yes groups, things like and arts and things like that.
Yes.
And so, so I'm like, am I typing in too many independence things that they're coming up? And so I had actually put a post on my own Facebook page saying, why am I suddenly getting all these? And it was other people saying, start reporting them. So that's what I started to do. So anybody out there, if you're getting them, report them to Facebook. And then these people can just waste their money and they're not getting anything for it, because eventually they'll be taking them down. But they must be scared. They must be scared if they're spending that sort of money.
I think that, those sort of tactics smack to me of them being pretty paranoid and really, scared that we're on the brink of something. And I think, by the same token, if you are a unionist, you wouldn't want to be bombarded with things about pro-Indy. So, I think social media is a very double-edged sword, sharp. them getting reported, I don't know if that has any effect on the advertising. Probably
Don't know.
not, but I know, but I would keep reporting it. Just keep
Yeah, it just
reporting it.
makes you feel good. At least it makes you
It
feel
does.
good, you know. But the thing is, I don't see many Scottish Greens adverts or SNP adverts. It's all,
No,
yes, that must be trying to change my mind somewhere along the line. I don't know. Somebody's,
they obviously
yeah,
think,
I think somebody's put a curse on me or something.
or they think that you're at the brink and you could be turned. They think you could be
Nah.
turned.
No, even on a day of a hangover. No, it's not
No.
going to happen. Right, sticking with the election, Nicola Sturgeon says there are only 24 hours to keep Scotland in safe hands. Nicola Sturgeon said today there are only 24 hours to secure strong, experienced leadership to keep Scotland safe at this critical time for the country. Speaking on the final day of the Both Votes SNP Tour of Scotland, which will see the First Minister campaign from Aberdeenshire in the North East to Dumbarton on the West Coast ahead of tomorrow's election, Ms Sturgeon said that by giving both votes to SNP, the people of Scotland will get a serious government for these serious times. The First Minister said that the SNP is the only party with an immediate plan to get Scotland through the COVID pandemic, and the SNP is the only party with a serious programme for government to kickstart economic recovery, to remobilise our NHS and to tackle the climate crisis. But to get that serious government, people have to vote for it. Again, Julie, as we've been saying, about the vote tomorrow, we've actually getting less than 24 hours now because the polls open is at 7 in the morning. So
Yep.
we're getting down to the final hours, and yeah, people need to vote. They really need to vote, and yeah,
But I think it totally
SNP
feeds in.
is yeah.
Mm.
On you
It's
go.
what feeds into what we were talking about before, though, Sam, with the
Yeah,
pro-unionist parties, the pro-unionist advertising. That the SNP do have a plan. They do have a plan to kickstart. They
yeah,
do have a plan post-COVID for green recovery, in conjunction with the Green Party. The other parties are spending so much time. It was interesting when I was out with their candidate, Sarah Masson, and she said she'd spoken to a lady, and the lady had said, I'm so fed up with people, with parties that don't have any policies. The only policy they have is stop the SNP and stop the second Indie referendum.
yeah,
And they've spent so much time on that. How are they going to get us out of this? I mean, I know the Labour Party think that they're up for national recovery, but have you seen how much they're trailing by in Hartlepool? The
yeah,
Labour, I mean, 17%.
yeah,
And that needs to
yeah,
register with the Scottish vote. That really, really needs to register with the Scottish
yeah.
vote, because that shows you Hartlepool is going to, it's going to be Tory, and that's it. And
Yeah,
people need to think about that. So, no matter what Labour think they can do up here, hide into nothing. So
yeah.
I think, yeah,
And yeah, it's going to be tough. But the thing is, the Scottish Government, the SNP, have made mistakes. They've admitted they've made mistakes.
yeah,
But the thing is, they have got us through this COVID crisis.
mm-hmm,
It doesn't matter what you think of, personal feelings and things. They have got us through the COVID crisis. They really have.
yeah,
And there's so many other parties have spent their times just arguing like school children instead of just going, right, okay, we need to pull together and we need to
mm-hmm,
kind of get the country sorted and pull people through, and and it just seems to be, and even with this election, it's all acting like school children.
uh-huh.
The fighting, the bickering, and yeah, I would just like to see more adult politics.
Yes, I think I think, to me, the Westminster cabinet feels like the boys of the sixth form common room at Harrow or Eton, and it's all that is so it is childish, it is immature, it is posturing, it is these, adolescent boys. And I think, like her, loathe her, be indifferent towards her. I think Nicola Sturgeon is an adult, and I think she conducts herself in a very measured way. And I absolutely admire the fact that she can say sorry, that she can apologise for her mistakes, because that is
Yeah.
so rare in politics. So rare. And just to say, hands up, yes, it's a mistake, we need to learn from it. And you kind of feel that she is the only person who can, the only pair of safe hands there is at the moment. So I hope the majority comes. I really do.
Yeah. Oh, we'll be sitting here in tender hooks until the results come in. Oh, it's going to be. Oh, yeah. Right, now for the next story. Michael Barnier says the UK's post-Brexit future was was determined by Tory infighting. I was going to say undermined by Tory infighting there. Anyway, now to the story. The UK's post-Brexit future was determined by the quarrels, low blows, multiple betrayals, and thwarted by ambitions of a certain number of Tory MPs. The EU's Brexit chief negotiator has said in his long-awaited diaries. Michael Barnier writes in The Great Illusion, his 500-page account, that the UK's early problem was that they began by talking to themselves, and they underestimated the legal complexity of this divorce and many of its consequences. The talking soon turned to Conservative Party infighting, and by the end, according to Mr Barnier, it became political piracy. They will go to any length. The current team in Downing Street is not up to the challenges of Brexit, nor the responsibility that is theirs for having wanted Brexit. Simply, I no longer trust them. Published in French tomorrow and in English with the title My Secret Brexit Diary in October, the book is a blow-by-blow account of the 4 years of Brexit negotiations by the EU's chief negotiator. Now, Julie, I'm not actually quite surprised by this. It was determined by Tory infighting. We kind of sat back and seen it all play out. Step by step, we reported it, talked about it on the show. Yeah, you're certainly not surprised either.
No, I mean, for David Cameron to allow himself to be so noised up by the right, Nigel Farage, etc., to basically go ahead with the referendum in the first place was insane in my book. But it's always been about the Conservatives. The whole thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Brexit is a purely English problem, but it's not even England as a whole. I think it is the Tory party. I was at the STUC Women's Conference, gosh, a few years ago. It must have been just when Brexit had been pushed, voted through. And there was a girl there giving us a lecture. And she said that she had worked with Barnier. And she said he's an incredible negotiator. Absolutely incredible. Tough but fair, all this kind of thing. I've learned loads from him. And apparently at that point, he was tearing his hair out with David Davis. Just the way that they were all behaving, because it was completely about posturing and where they were in the Conservative Party, and try to tell people what to do and sort of shoulder barging people out the way, and with absolutely no heed to the complexities of the divorce. And he said that people were finding out things as they talked about them at the negotiating table. They hadn't come saying, oh, well, there's X, Y, and Z that needs to be sorted out for that situation, and X, Y, and Z that needs to be sorted out vis-a-vis Northern Ireland, all that. Oh, really? Is that what's happening? They were finding it out, and it's not a good look.
No, it's not. But again, it comes down to not being able to be adults, and that's the problem with Westminster. that childish politics that surrounds Westminster, surrounds Downing Street, the
Yeah.
Eton Adolescent Boys Club, and that's
Aye.
what came through, and that's the problem. That is the biggest problem.
They seem to my mind, Sam, to be more worried about who's going to get the next shot in, the throne, who's going to be the next prime minister. And obviously, Gove is shaping up for that at the moment. He's got his eyes on the prize. He's had his eyes on the prize several times. And that seems to be what it's about for them. And they're also trying to please, like, Rees Mogg and his cronies, and all you're never going to be able to. The one thing that actually makes me I'm not too worried about it, is that I know they're fighting like rats in a sack constantly. That they're actually going to tear themselves apart from within. But I think they're going to spend a heck of a lot of time renegotiating their way back in, as Barney says, in through the windows to the single market, because they've slammed the doors shut. And I think that's what my husband has said all along. They're going to spend all those years getting out and then all those years negotiating their way back to what we had, but it's going to cost us more. And I think
Yeah,
it is all just toxic and a bit pathetic. And I feel for Barnier having to deal with it all.
I feel for anyone that had to deal with any of them, and I still do, because they're toxic. They're absolutely toxic. And as you say, they're going to renegotiate these deals, but it will cost people, and it will be the normal people that will have to pay for it. At the end of the day, they're not going to suffer and pay for it. Now, moving on to the next story, sticking with Brexit, surprisingly. Jersey fishing row escalates. French fishing boats are threatening to blockade the ports in the Channel Islands in an escalation of a post-Brexit row in which the French Maritime Minister has backed calls to cut off Jersey's electricity supply. French officials have also said they will close their offices in Jersey and stop products from the island entering France. The Jersey Evening Post has reported that the possibility of stopping all commercial vessels accessing French ports and cutting off the electricity was discussed at two protests in France. Jersey's External Relations Minister, Senator Ian Gorst, said there was no justification for such severe measures. Responding to questions in the National Assembly on Tuesday, Annick Girardin, the French Minister for Maritime Affairs, said she was revolted by the UK's government's behaviour over its waters and France was ready to retaliate. The British Crown dependency of Jersey, the largest of the Channel Islands, relies on the transmission of electricity by underwater cable. Girardin said she was questioned by Assembly members, raising the supply as a point of leverage. She said that France was ready to take retaliatory measures after accusing the Channel Islands of breaching the new Brexit trade deal by imposing new restrictions on French access to Jersey waters. Again, Julie, this is another example of the UK and their negotiations with Brexit and making a total mess of it. I'm going to put the words politely here. And
Aye.
now the Channel Islands look as if they are going to suffer at the hands of it. What's your
Well,
impression of this? It's
you know
funny
when I,
how the British government's not really saying much about this, isn't it?
well, no, I mean it's Jersey that have been allowed to. I actually got a friend who lives in Jersey. I must email him and see what his thoughts are. But it's
Yeah, get the goss, get the inside
I'll
goss.
get the ghost. But
Yeah.
when you read about it, and I know I shouldn't say this because I shouldn't take it lightly because people are very upset about it, but it felt
Yeah.
like the plot of an Ealing comedy. As
Yes.
soon as Brexit, then oh yes, we'll show them. That's it. No, they're not going to be able to fish 40 days a year. It's only going to be 11 days. And there just doesn't seem to have been a lot of negotiation going on. Because the thing that I read said the new licenses were issued on Friday, and then everybody just ran out of the offices so that they wouldn't have to deal with anybody, because they knew there was going to be an enormous amount of flack about it. And surely, cutting off electricity, blockade ships, really, it's 2021, guys.
I know.
I think they need to start talking. They should have started talking a long time ago. I don't know whether it is a genuine sustainability goal that means that they have to change the licenses. I mean, it could just be like, oh, we've always wanted to stick one on them kind of thing. And the fact that they can now manage the waters themselves, they're taking this opportunity to be kind of bully boys about it. But I really feel that there has to be some kind of negotiation. Someone's got to step in. If they can't do it themselves, someone has to step in. And I just feel we're going to hear a lot more of this. The post-Brexit world.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I think, as post-Brexit kind of becomes normality and people are now waking up to what's happening, I think we are going to be hearing more of these things, and I hope to goodness no blockade actually happens and nobody's electricity power gets shut off. It's just ridiculous. It's came to these situations, and these things are getting discussed now. You would think that, I wonder what Downing Street's going to be saying about this one. It'll be interesting to see, but we'll need to keep an eye on this story to see how it progresses, and hopefully they can sort it out. Now, we're moving on to America. A judge orders release of memo on Trump's obstruction decision. A Justice Department memorandum explaining the decision not to charge Donald Trump with obstruction at the conclusion of the Mueller investigation must be made public, a federal judge has ruled. Attorneys for the department were disingenuous in their attempts to keep the document secret, District Court Judge Amy Berman Jackson said, according to CNN reports. The almost totally redacted memo the lawyers had claimed was legal reasoning that merely assisted William Barr, the then Attorney General, to come to the decision not to charge the President for obstruction Mueller's inquiry, and was therefore protected from public release. But Barr's decision not to charge Trump was predetermined, Jackson said in her 35-page opinion in a lawsuit brought in the US District of Columbia by the government transparency group Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington. The agency's redactions and incomplete explanations obfuscate the true purpose of the memorandum, and sorry if I pronounced that totally wrong. The teeth are not in tonight. The excised portions believe the notion that it fell into the Attorney General to make a prosecution decision, or that any such decision on the table at any time, Jackson said in the opinion released on Tuesday. Jackson, who has previously questioned the Trump administration's motives in keeping information secret, and who sentenced Trump acolyte Roger Stone to 40 months in prison for crimes including lying to Congress, has been a frequent target of attacks by the former president, who subsequently commuted his long-term friend's sentence. Now, Julie, I'm kind of tempted to say I'm not surprised that Trump's making the kind of news again. And I'm quite glad that they are ordering the release of the memo. What's your feelings on this regarding Trump obscuring, interfering in Mueller's inquiry?
I could be accused of being like the biggest conspiracy theorist here, but I definitely think that he's in with the Russians. They're his pals.
Yeah.
And I think that it was interesting. I saw a tweet actually, Sam, that said, "I've just realised that I've spent a few months not worrying about what the American president is doing." And I thought, It's true, actually, and it's sort of, it kind of registered with me that, yeah, we do actually feel a collective sense of relief that he's not there, and he hasn't been tweeting his incendiary tweets, and he hasn't been doing all this dreadful social media that he did. And I kind of hope that people, I hope that there is an opening up, because to my mind, there's no doubt that he obstructed, and that's not a legal point of view. That's just my opinion. But I think, I think she's absolutely right in saying she knew the outcome before,
Yeah.
before it started. That, but it will be interesting. But I did read that the most kind of the most telling document will probably stay secret. But I think Trump needs to feel that he's not going to continue to get away with it, because he got away with it for
Yeah.
4 years, and he's got away with it before. Let's face it. But I think he needs to feel that he can be called to account. I'm surprised he didn't pardon himself before, when he could hand out the presidential pardon. I'm surprised he didn't say, I'll just
You
pardon
never
myself in
know.
advance.
He might have tried. He might have tried.
No,
You don't know.
like that. I'm just creating this get out of jail free card, and I'm going to keep it with me, and I'll use it when I need to. But I hope it does have something kind of damning in it, because it would be nice if people who needed to be brought to book were brought to book, because he was protected by his office for 4 years.
Oh, he certainly was, yeah. Now, sticking with Trump, I've got another wee story about Trump. It's funny how we've not heard about him for a wee while, and suddenly we've got two stories in the one evening. Facebook oversight board rules Trump's ban should not be lifted. Donald Trump's Facebook account should not be reinstated, the social media giant's oversight board said today, barring Trump's imminent return to the platform. However, the board has pushed the final decision over Trump's account back to Facebook itself, suggesting the platform makes a decision in 6 months regarding what to do with the ex-president's account and whether it will be permanently deleted. Facebook suspended Trump's account after the Capitol attack of the 6th of January, when a mob of Trump supporters stormed Congress in an attempt to overturn the ex-president's defeat by Joe Biden in the 2020 elections. Trump was initially suspended from Facebook and Instagram for 24 hours as a result of the two posts in which he appeared to praise the actions of the rioters. The company then extended the president's ban at least until the end of his time in office. His account was suspended indefinitely pending the decision of the Oversight Board. The group appointed academics and former politicians meant to operate independently of Facebook's corporate leadership. Now, there we go, Julie. As I said, we don't hear from Trump for a while, then suddenly we've got two stories, and they're talking about his ban on Facebook. Would you permanently ban Trump, or would you allow him back with a lot of restrictions?
For past behaviour, I think I would permanently ban him. I mean, I think social media needs to be more regulated. When you see what people can write, and it can be very, very harmful, and I think he used it in a very harmful way. But I mean, I wasn't really aware of him on Facebook, because I think you need to follow these people to be aware of what they do. But I know that Facebook are very strict. I don't know if you've experienced this, but I've had friends who've been, I've been in Facebook jail, and they know that they've hardly done anything. I mean, somebody commented on a post of mine, because I had said in a very grown-up way, when my husband got his first vaccination, I said, if he annoys me today, I'm going to punch him on his jag. And I thought that it was just a joke, It was just, I'm going to punch it like, oh, my BCG sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a guy that I was at school with said to me, or what are you like, Julie? And I said, I'm a cheeky monkey. I got a message from Facebook saying, do you really want to put that down? Because that is against our standards, a cheeky monkey. So I just thought, I'm
Really?
not worth fighting. Really? So I think if I can be sanctioned, or
Wow.
nearly sanctioned, for saying cheeky monkey, Mr. Trump can be binned permanently because he can't help himself.
Exactly.
He
No, he
spews
can't.
hate. I think all the
Yes,
kind of
he does.
far right.
And yeah, they do, don't they? They don't seem to have a kind of on-off switch where they kind of, they turn around and say, will it be appropriate? Will it not be appropriate? Is it needed? Is it not
Yeah,
needed?
yeah.
There's no filter. They just go for it.
No,
And
there
then
is no.
when people start to complain, a lot of the
Mm-hmm,
times they're the victim and they don't have freedom of speech.
mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
a lot of the times they're inciting hatred.
I think any hatred that can be seen at all as inciting hatred needs to
Yeah,
be policed, needs to be away. And I'm talking about that from anybody, not just Donald Trump,
yes,
anybody. But
yes.
why somebody just because they managed to either buy their way into office or dupe their way into office should be, afforded some protection. Because I saw his wee pal saying, oh, this is terrible, this is against his human rights. Well, I actually think that a lot of the things he did while he was in office are against people's human rights, and some of the things that he writes are against human rights. So I say uphold that ban.
Definitely, I agree with you there. It's the world is a happier and quieter place without Donald Trump. It's on social media. That's my opinion, anyway. So anyway, now to the next story. Back at home here in Scotland, oh, a golden eagle was found dead in Aberdeenshire. Police Scotland are continuing inquiries into the poisoning of a bird of prey found dead near to Carrathy in Aberdeenshire. On Friday, the 19th of March 2020, golden eagle was found dead on a hillside in the Inverclude estate. A subsequent forensic examination confirmed the bird had been illegally and intentionally poisoned. Extensive inquiries are being carried out, and on Tuesday, the 4th of May 2021, officers acting under the warrant searched a number of properties on the Inverclyde estate. No arrests were made and inquiries are ongoing. Detective Constable Daniel Crilly, Wildlife Crime Unit, said poisoning a bird or animal is not only cruel and callous, but can also harm other wildlife. Illegal persecution of raptors will not be tolerated. It is one of the 6 priorities set by the UK National Wildlife Crime Unit, and raptor persecution is the current focus of Police Scotland's year-long campaign, Operation Wingspan. Julie, even just reading that, I just can't get my head round why
No.
someone would intentionally poison a bird of prey, never mind a golden eagle. I mean, that is just, it's callous.
It's also, what purpose does it serve to anybody? I mean,
Yeah,
when I knew that we were going to be talking about this, Sam, I was talking about it with my husband and my son, and we were all saying, why would anybody want to do that? Why,
yeah,
you could. There is nothing that would justify that kind of pathetically useless crime. And then I start reading about it, and I hear it's really quite common. And I
yeah,
think, why? It's like my husband said he never understood the guys that collected eggs.
yes,
Why would you rob, potentially kill the parent bird, or maybe injure it getting it away, and take the wee babies just to have these empty eggs? And to me, there's no purpose to that hobby. It's just vandalism, really. And I really can't understand it. It kind of, I started to say, why would anybody do that? And there's not one person that I think could give you a reason. You know,
no, it's a kind of mindset. Unless you've got it, you don't understand it. I think that's what it is. It's a kind of a mindset that, why would you harm, a harmless bird?
is,
And
is it
it
power? Do you
makes no.
think, Sam? Do you think it's a
I
power
think a
thing? Do
lot
you
of
think
it's
it's
to
just
do. I think a lot of it's to do with the grouse estates and things where they're coming
right?
down and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. But even then, why? At the end of the day, I mean, I know, and it's most people in Scotland, when you're driving about or you're in the train or out walking and you see the various birds of prey that we have got flying around, it's a wonderful sight. You just stand there and you look at the sky and you're like, wow, look. And sometimes you might not be able to be an expert and distinguish
No,
what's
I can't.
what, but to be able just to see them sit, flying or just sitting, hovering because they're watching something in a
Yeah.
field, it's just, if you've got kids, it's just amazing to watch. And why would people want to destroy that? It's a mindset I don't get. It really is. It's a mindset I don't
It's not
get.
even, I mean, I'm not equating it with, like poaching, as in, ivory hunters and things like that, because that's absolutely hideous. But
Yeah,
they think they're gaining something from taking the
yeah.
ivory and selling it and making money. They're not even making money out of that. It's just killing something, which
It's
it's kind of so horrible.
Yeah, it's just killing another a harmless. Well, they might not see it as harmless because of the grouse and things, but they're killing a beautiful bird which is part of our ecosystem. Just to so they can make money out of humans going killing a grouse, shooting them, and it's just, it makes no
And
sense. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And I hope. They find out who's done it and get them charged. And I don't even know what the sentencing is for these sorts of crimes. Now, for the last story of the evening, the NHS Louisa Jordan continues to benefit patients across Scotland. Sorry. In March 2021, outpatients, diagnostic appointments and clinical training stopped at NHS Louisa Jordan Hospital, while vaccines continue at the Hydro location within the Scottish Events campus. Following the decommissioning of the hospital services at the SEC, the main building, and in addition to ongoing vaccinations at the Hydro, NHS Louisa Jordan continues to benefit patients across Scotland through the distribution of medical equipment. So far, the NHS Louisa Jordan resources have been used to further equip a range of services in the Western Isles, Forth Valley, Fife, Lanarkshire, Glasgow and Tayside. Set up the NHS Louisa Jordan vaccination facilities at the SSE Hydro, help NHS Lothian vaccination facilities, further equip the new NHS Scotland COVID testing laboratories, and support NHS Greater Glasgow and Clyde to continue providing the heart failure service they started within the NHS Louisa Jordan to help waiting times for patients. A complete package of equipment is also earmarked for NHS Highland for the new facilities at Skye, Abbeymoor and new National Treatment Centre in Inverness. Now, Julie, I remember, as everybody does, when NHS Louisa Jordan was started, and again from a lot of the ones that were out there spilling their negativity, saying that it wasn't going to be worth it, it was going to be a waste of money and everything else, and there was no point. And it has been so widely used and still being used. It's amazing. It has certainly earned its money's worth, that's for sure.
I think
Have
a
you
lot
been
of
to the
people
Louisa Jordan at all for your vaccine? Did you go there or
know,
did you
because
go elsewhere?
I'm in Edinburgh, so I was just at my wee local health centre, which was brilliant, really well, very efficiently done. But a lot of my pals have been out at Edinburgh Park and at the
Hmm.
conference centre as well. But I think some people, I remember when the Louisa Jordan was being opened, and a lot of people are just by nature oppositional, and they have to have a moan about, oh, I know they're spending money on that. But would they rather we ended up in a terrible situation like what's happening in India at the moment? And,
Yeah,
we were prepared. We were prepared. We were over prepared, and it wasn't used in this, the way that loads and loads of COVID patients would end up in there, and for that we must be forever thankful. When I read what was happening now, that they're keeping the 500 bed bays, and then it's going to be putting packages into all other areas of the NHS in Scotland, to me it felt like a kind of donor program, like donating organs and like things, and I just thought, how brilliant, hurrah, that I think that's just fantastic. A friend of mine who did get her vaccine at Louisa Jordan just thinks it's the best place in the world.
Yeah, I was going to. One of my friends got her vaccine in the Louisa Jordan, and she just really praised the place, and it's certainly been worth its weight in gold. And as all the NHS staff and frontline workers have been since last year through the COVID crisis, they have all been. Yeah, they've been worth their weight in gold plus more. They really have. Goodness knows where we would be without them. And with Louisa Jordan, I'm so thankful that they didn't need to use it for what they thought they were going to use it for. For them to have it there prepared just in case, but thankful it wasn't used for that. And I think it's been money well spent.
Definitely.
Definitely. Well, that's all for this evening, and thank you so much, Julie, for joining me this evening. It was a pleasure. Blessing to you once again, and thank you for joining me this evening at Scotland at 7. And please, we need your support. If you would like to subscribe, the details are on the screen. If you can't afford to subscribe, then a wee donation. If you can't afford to do that, don't worry, you can basically join our media team and share our programmes and spread the word. Also as well, if you would like to get involved with us as a journalist, as presenting, sitting here hosting the shows, or even behind the screen, behind the scenes and the cameras, please get involved. We are always looking for more help. In the meantime, before I go, I'm going to say, please go out and vote tomorrow. Make sure you vote. Yeah, even Julie, both of us are pleading. Please go out and vote. If you are ill and you cannot vote, phone up your local authority and get a proxy vote and get somebody to do it on your behalf. It is very, very important. This election is so important, and hopefully we will be... various people will be reporting on the results and keeping everybody up to date while we all sit and bite our nails and pull our hair out, and I'll be drinking coffee and eating chocolate biscuits while I'm terrified. But in the meantime, have a lovely evening, and I'll see you all soon. Thank you.